Greetings, this is Eat Fat Grow Slim, and this has got to be one of the most important videos I want to make because this is all about fasting. My preferred method of fasting is to have just one great meal a day, but that's not the only way to do it, and I just want to discuss some of the other ways very briefly, but also tell you why. So the question I'm asking today is, are you ready for it? It's an interesting question because the real question isn't whether fasting works. Humans have been fasting for as long as humans have existed. Long before there were supermarkets, refrigerators or snack bars or 24-hour convenience stores, there were periods of plenty and periods when that food just wasn't available. So the human body evolved to alternate between periods of feeding and fasting. Eating actually stores energy and fasting uses it up. That's perfectly normal physiology and common to all carnivores and omnivores in nature. I think the only exception, of course, is herbivores, where if you can imagine a cow or a sheep munching away grass all day long. Now, today I'd like to explain why fasting has become such an important part of my own life, the different ways people approach it and who it's suitable for, and some maybe not, and some of the common pitfalls, and perhaps most importantly, how to choose a fasting pattern that you could happily follow for years rather than just weeks. So this is very personal for me because fasting quite literally changed my life. I weighed 254 pounds, I was pre-diabetic, had fatty liver disease, I suffered from gout, I had heart problems, and I was taking 7 different medications. Like many people, I spent decades trying to lose weight. I tried calorie counting, I tried low-fat diets, I'd lost weight several times, and like so many people, I put it all back on again. Now this is kind of pretty much in the middle of COVID, and I couldn't get out for as much exercise, and really I was on my knees. So January 2021, I read The Complete Guide to Fasting by Jason Fung. This is the book. I'd recommend it to anyone, absolutely anyone. Now, what struck me wasn't simply that fasting could help people lose weight. It was that it addressed some of the underlying drivers of metabolic disease, chronically elevated insulin. I decided to try one meal a day. To my amazement, it worked. Within 9 months, I'd lost 50 pounds. My pre-diabetes disappeared. 5 of my medications were no longer needed. My blood pressure medication was reduced. My fatty liver was reversed. My gout improved dramatically. And of course, I lost all that weight and I was feeling great. Perhaps the biggest surprise wasn't the weight loss, it was the disappearance of hunger, which is completely counterintuitive, and this is why fasting is so amazing. For the first time since I was a teenager, I wasn't constantly thinking about food. I wasn't watching the clock waiting for my next meal. Food no longer controlled my day. These days I generally eat 2 meals a day because my weight has been stable for years. Fasting has simply become part of my lifestyle, not because I force myself, but because it just feels natural. Fasting's normal. One of the biggest misconceptions is that fasting somehow starves the body. It does not. There's a huge difference between fasting and starvation. Starvation is when there is no choice, you have no food. Fasting is when food is available, but you choose not to eat it for a period of time. Your body isn't deprived of energy during a fast. Quite the opposite. It simply changes where that energy comes from. Instead of burning the food you've just eaten, it begins to burn the food you've already stored. Now, that is what body fat is for. It's a reserve fuel tank. If we never allow ourselves to draw on that reserve, then it's hardly surprising that the tank keeps getting bigger. Now, modern society has almost eliminated fasting. Many people eat breakfast, then a snack, then lunch, then another snack, then dinner, then something in the front of the television. From the moment they wake until the moment they go to bed, insulin is repeatedly being stimulated. The body spends very little time in the fasted state. Historically, that would have been highly unusual. So this is where insulin control is very important. Insulin is a storage molecule, and if you keep that high every day, your body fat is locked away. Okay, so I'm often asked, what's the best fasting program? And the answer is pretty much all the same. There sort of isn't one. And the other caveat, it's the one that works for you. First, everyone does a bit of fasting. That's what happens when you sleep. So from 0 to 8 hours, you're still basically in a fed state. So often, by the time most people are waking up, they're only just beginning a fast. So you're in a fed state, you're absorbing your nutrients from your guts. Insulin is relatively high, but starting to lower if you don't eat. And your body is mainly burning the glucose that has just arrived from your food. And at this stage, you're not really fasting yet. Between 8 and 12 hours, insulin begins to fall. This is important because insulin is the body's storage hormone and locks away fat. As insulin drops, your body gradually switches from storing energy to accessing it. Now, fat storage slows and the door to fat burning begins to open. This is really important. So by 12 hours, we're just on this border here where there is lower glycogen and the fat is starting to be burned. By 12 to 16 hours, you're moving into an early fast situation. Your liver has started drawing on its glycogen stores, its reserve supply of glucose, but at the same time, your fat burning just starts to increase. This is why many people are practicing a simple 16-8 eating pattern. Now that's where you fast for 16 hours and only eat in an 8-hour window. They already start to see improvements in weight and metabolic health. The real joy starts at 16 hours to 24 hours when glycogen stores are failing and your insulin remains low and fat has become the most important fuel. This can be a transitional period that is difficult for many people if you're not fat adapted, if you're not used to this. But many people notice that hunger actually becomes easier to manage here, and while mental clarity often improves. Instead of constantly running on incoming food, your body has become much better at running on its own energy. And what happens is, as long as that energy is on flow, if you have actual fat stores, why should you be hungry? There are types of hunger that are more mental rather than physical that you still might experience, but actually you're getting the energy you need. Right. This is good for most people. If you can get up to 23 or 24 hours, you're really getting into a prime position. 20 hours is quite an important position because serious autophagy is then initiated by this time, and that probably includes just about anyone. Between 20 and 24 hours, this is when something really interesting happens and the process of autophagy starts to become more active. Literally means self-eating, but don't let that word worry you. It's really your body's housekeeping service breaking down damaged proteins and worn out cellular components so they can be recycled into building blocks. And the wonder of this is this is how we evolved. You know, at times when there was a shortage of food, that actually was a great opportunity for the body to actually repair itself. Now, this is the point where I did most of my fasting, doing one meal a day, which is effectively, you've got to have some time to eat. So that's effectively a 23-hour fasting window with a 1-hour eating window. Now, if you can get any further, then you're into some really interesting territory, because 24 to 36 hours autophagy continues to increase, fat burning is now well established, insulin remains very low, inflammation often falls, and your body becomes increasingly efficient at recycling all that damaged material. So it's almost like a really deep spring clean at cellular level. But the story doesn't stop there, because some people, if you're really courageous, you can go even further. You will find on the internet people who've done fasting for a week or more. I mean, there is an amazing record of someone who fasted most of the year and just ate broth and vitamins, but he was extremely fat. Barbieri, I think his name was, and he was a Scotsman. And he stayed thin the rest of his life, reasonably thin. I digress. So, between 36 and 48 hours, we're down to here. Another process begins to become more significant. Now, you do have apoptosis all the time. You do have autophagy all the time. You do have a little bit of fat burning all the time. But if you're eating, it doesn't really happen enough. These are levels where these things become really important and significant. Apoptosis, they used to talk about this as a very important anti-cancer strategy for decades now. This is programmed cell death, and this is what some cancer cells lack, and that's how they thrive. If you can fast long enough, it is thought that the cancer cells themselves can start dying off. And we all have cancer cells all the time. It's the immune system that's dealing with them on a regular basis, and it's only when they get stronger than the immune system that they start to become a serious problem. But, a bit of fasting is not going to hurt. Now, while autophagy simply repairs damaged parts and recycles, apoptosis removes cells that are too damaged to repair, and it's an important quality control system that helps maintain health. Now, during this period, the first signs of stem cell activation also begin to appear in some tissues, laying the groundwork for repair and renewal. And 48 hours to 72 hours, if you're brave enough, now you're well into the extended fast, and all these good things are happening. Fat burning is high, autophagy is working hard, apoptosis becomes more pronounced, and stem cell mediated repair pathways become increasingly active. This is where many of the regenerative effects reported in fasting research are thought to occur. Now, all this is contingent on the fact that you must have some stored fat, because your system will need energy, and if you haven't got any fat, it will start using your muscle and soft tissues. So beware. I don't want to encourage anyone with eating disorders to start doing 72-hour fasts. You can even go further if you're healthy. Beyond 72 hours, these repair processes continue, although it's important to remember that longer isn't always better. An extended fast should be approached carefully, especially if you have medical conditions or take any kind of medication. So the key message isn't that everyone needs to fast for 3 days, far from it. Even reaching the middle of this ladder gives your body time to lower insulin, empty glycogen stores, increase fat burning, and begin the important cellular maintenance. And of course, the cellular maintenance that is most apparent is your gut. If you're eating from dawn till dusk, you don't really ever get a chance, not ever a chance to repair your gut, because there's still food in your gut several hours after you've eaten. Fasting gives your digestive system the chance it needs to fully repair. So the higher you climb, the deeper those repair mechanisms become, but every rung on the ladder offers benefits increasingly. And that's why fasting isn't an all or nothing lifestyle. It's a spectrum of metabolic improvements that you can choose. Oh, and you can choose. Last word. It's a spectrum of metabolic improvements, and you can choose the right rung that's good for you. If you can manage, if you get near that eating window and you want to push it a bit further, do so. I've often found that I've reached my middle of the day where it's time for my one meal a day, and I thought, no, I'm just going to push this a bit more. I go for a walk, I've forgotten my hunger, and before I know it, I've added 3 or 4 hours. Now for me, one meal a day was the perfect tool for losing weight. Today, 2 meals a day are most perfect for maintaining that weight loss. I think your ideal fasting pattern may be different, and that's absolutely fine. The best fasting program is one that fits comfortably into your life and your lifestyle, and that you can still imagine following 5 years from now. Okay, let's talk about why fasting works so well. Most people immediately think about weight loss. So how does fasting work so well? Most people immediately think about weight loss, and yes, that's certainly part of the story. As insulin falls and glycogen stores are gradually emptied, the body increasingly relies on that stored fat. In other words, it starts using energy reserve you've been carrying around, sometimes for years and years and years. I mean, I got to a weight where I hadn't been for 30 years. Some of that fat has been sitting there on my body for all that time. I actually think the reduction in appetite is even more remarkable. People often assume fasting means constant battling hunger, but that certainly wasn't my experience. And the first week or two involved an adjustment. I mean, it was really hard at first, but once your body adapted, hunger became quieter and far more predictable. And it was more about habits and not about low energy, because once your fat is unlocked, you actually don't need to eat in a physical sense, because you've got all the energy you need. But then there are little triggers like particular times of day, certain things you do, go to social events and all this sort of thing, where you want to join in and be sociable, or you're sort of stuck in these habits of, you walk through the kitchen and you open the fridge. Has that ever happened to you? What you need to say to you is, no, I'm not actually that hungry. Now I discovered something that's enormously important, that actually hunger can come in waves, and sometimes this is linked to particular times of day, and it isn't a steady rising line. If you ignore it for 20 or 30 minutes, it often passes completely. It's almost like your body realises, actually, you've got some energy because you're burning the fat. And I realised that much of it was what I previously called hunger was actually pure habit. Fasting also gives insulin a chance to fall. Every time you eat, particularly carbohydrate-rich foods, insulin rises. That's perfectly normal. The problem comes when we're eating so frequently that the insulin rarely has time to baseline. And I mean, that's hard to measure. Your GP is not necessarily going to give you a fasting insulin test, but I wish they would. But that's one reason fasting increasingly being studied alongside obesity, type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome and fatty liver disease. Oh, and gout as well. Okay, there's also a psychological benefit, and I don't think it's talked about enough perhaps. One of the greatest gifts fasting gave me wasn't simply better blood tests, it was freedom. Freedom constantly thinking about food, freedom constantly thinking about carrying snacks around, freedom of organising my time and my day around the next meal. And I felt as though I had regained control over my appetite rather than allowing my appetite to control me. Okay, here's a really good one, because I was plagued with dyspepsia, heartburn and all sorts of problems for years, decades. And I used to take a protein pump inhibitor called lansoprazole every day. This is a really bad idea because it lowers your stomach acid, and it means that you're not getting the minerals you need because your stomach acid is too low. Our stomach, intestines, pancreas and liver spend more or less all the time processing incoming garbage, mostly garbage. It's not even real food, half this. I mean, look at the supermarket shelves. They are just full of garbage. Okay, so the stomach, intestines are always processing this food-like substance that's going through our body. when you fast, you get a chance to maintain. You're giving your body a rest. Well, it's not necessarily all fun and games. There are some pitfalls you should know about. So don't pretend it's just pure magic. It's good, but it's not magic. Like any lifestyle intervention, there are some pitfalls, and I think it's important to discuss them honestly. So the first mistake people make is believing that fasting somehow gives them permission to eat anything they like during the eating window. I mean, I think you can do that once or twice, but it doesn't really work. If you fast all day and then celebrate with pizza, cakes, sugary drinks and highly processed snacks, you're working against yourself. I suppose it's better than eating all that stuff all day, but your body needs more than that stuff. Fasting is a powerful tool, but it works best when combined with good nutrition. You can't out-fast a consistently poor diet. Now, the second mistake is trying to make progress too quickly. I often hear people saying they're going to start with a 48-hour fast because they want maximum benefit. If you're young and healthy, you've only got a few pounds to lose, maybe that's okay for you, but there are problems here. My advice is to do the opposite, I think. Start gently. I went straight for OMAD, 1 meal a day, and it was hell. And you might want to do that, but it was hell for 4 or 5 days. Start gently though. Begin with a 12-hour overnight fast. When that feels effortless, extend it to a 14. So just make your evening meal earlier, just delay your breakfast perhaps, and get that eating window down and down and down. So while fasting, another common concern is hunger, and during the first few days you may well experience quite a bit of hunger, especially at your usual meal times, and that's perfectly normal. Your body is expecting food because you've trained it to do that for decades maybe, and people can discover, just as I did, that hunger comes in waves. It lasts for a short time and then can fade away. A glass of water, a cup of black coffee, or simply distract yourself for 20 minutes going for a walk is often great and helps the feeling disappear. Okay, hydration is super important. We obtain a surprising amount of water from our food. So when we're fasting, we need to remember to drink. Water should be your first choice during longer fasts. Paying attention to electrolytes is also a really good idea, particularly if you begin feeling lightheaded or fatigued, or sometimes you can get a bit of a headache with dehydration. It's especially important if you're going for the whole fully ketogenic strategy. Now, one issue that's particularly important as we get older is protein, and this is why I don't want to encourage people of a certain age to go into this too quickly and too hard. As we age, we naturally lose muscle mass, unless we actively try and preserve it, and the goal of fasting is to lose fat, not muscle, and other lean tissues, and this means eating enough good quality protein during your meal, and ideally combining fasting with some sort of resistance exercise. Maintaining muscle is one of the most important investments we can make for healthy aging. There's also consideration of fat, obviously, because you're not going to be eating the carbohydrates, because most of the carbohydrates are just empty energy and they don't necessarily provide you with any of those good nutrients like the fat-based vitamins. You have to have some fat in your diet. That's why it's called Eat Fat, Grow Slim, because what you're doing is you're moving away from the carbs, especially the refined ones like the sugars and the flours and stuff like that, and you're selecting fat. It's also worth remembering that fasting isn't suitable for everyone. Children who are growing, no. Pregnant women or breastfeeding women, I'm going to say no, and I think this is all in the literature. If you've got a history of eating disorders and anyone taking medications that can cause low blood sugar should seek appropriate medical advice before doing any of this. If you've got diabetes, type 1 diabetes particularly, don't take my word for it. Get to the doctor before you try any of this. If you're taking insulin or metformin or other sort of diabetes medications, fasting can alter your blood sugar significantly, so professional supervision is essential. Please don't take the stuff as a medical advice from me. Talk to your doc. Hopefully you'll find a doc that's sympathetic to fasting. Finally, don't become obsessed with the clock. I've met people who panic because they've eaten 15 hours instead of 16. That's missing the point entirely. Do what you can. Fasting should be, should simplify your life, not make it more complicated, and you'll save money. Even if you're eating top quality, that one top quality meal a day is going to save you money, because a lot of the stuff we eat, to be honest, is not good for you, and it's not cheap either. Right, the reason calorie controlled diets do not work long term is because they challenge any chance that you have of ever being satiated by a meal. What happens is your hunger level day by day increases and increases and increases, and you're getting tiny little meals, calorie controlled, that aren't really helping you. What you need to do is reset at the end of your fasting window. When you go back to a feeding state, you need to eat and design your meal for satiation. A donut might snap off your hunger, but you'll be hungry again in half an hour. You need something sustaining. So what should you eat to break your fast? My basic answer is eat real food. Build your meal around a generous portion of good quality protein. Now, I would say meat, fish and eggs. If you can't do meat, fish and eggs, maybe you can try cheese. If you have a problem with dairy, you need to get into beans and nuts, because you need a good core of protein. Not just if you're old, but you need the protein every day. So some people are talking about a gram of protein per kilo of body weight. Some say it's more, but you need it, and you need bioavailable protein. That is going to be most satisfying. It's going to help you maintain your muscle, add healthy natural fats, because fat slows digestion and contributes to the greatest of satiety. Include plenty of vegetables for vitamins, minerals and fibre, but be cautious with high carbohydrate. So people often describe the vegetables you need as above ground. So be cautious with any kind of sugar, anything refined, pastries, pasta, bread, all that stuff made with flour is going to be spiky. And ultra processed foods, just don't do it. These are the foods most likely to stimulate appetite after a short time. So one of the biggest changes I noticed after adopting one meal a day was that I stopped worrying about calories and started thinking about satiation instead. Instead of asking how little can I eat, I began asking what meal will keep me comfortable and full until tomorrow. One of the reasons people fail with fasting is that they undereat during their meal and then find themselves ravenously hungry a few hours later. Your eating window isn't meant to be a period of deprivation. It's an opportunity to nourish your body properly and openly and fully satiate yourself, giving yourself everything your body needs: the right proteins, the right fats, the right vitamins, the right minerals. It's an opportunity to eat slowly, enjoy your food, and stop when you're comfortably satisfied. I often summarise the whole philosophy in just 4 words: fast well, feast wisely. To me, that's the essence of sustainable fasting. When it's time to fast, allow your body to use its stored energy. When it's time to eat, provide it with the nutrients it genuinely needs. Do that consistently and the results are going to be wonderful. So I'm coming up to my final thoughts now. So fasting unequivocally changed my life, not because I discovered a miracle diet and not because I occasionally skip breakfast, because fasting fundamentally changed my relationship with food. Before 2021, food occupied far too much time in my thinking. I was forever planning the next meal, fighting cravings, trying to eat less and feeling disappointed when another diet failed. Fasting broke that cycle. It gave me a sense of freedom I'd never expected. It gave me a clarity of thought. It improved my breathing. It improved my body shapes. It cured my athlete's foot. I mean, it's insane what it's done for me. 50 pounds, losing 50 pounds was wonderful. I reversed my pre-diabetes, reversed my fatty liver, reduced my medication, improving my gout. All these were wonderful, but perhaps the greatest gift was simply peace of mind, because food became something to enjoy, really enjoy, rather than feel guilty about. So I'd like to leave you one final thought. Remember that fasting ladder we looked at earlier. You don't have to climb to the very top to get your improvement in results, but every rung represents progress. Every extra hour spent allowing your insulin to fall and your body to use its own stored energy is a step in the right direction. The goal isn't to complete the fasting ladder or too quickly or too fast. It's just to do what you can. The goal is to find an eating pattern that fits you, so you can continue, that you can balance your body weight, balance your satiation. 1 meal a day was the ideal for me for losing weight. 2 days was great for maintenance, and that success was very little effort. After the first couple of weeks, it's just plain sailing. And this is a person who was obese for most of his life. If you're considering fasting, my advice is simple. Start gently, be patient. Sustainable habits will always beat heroic efforts. I hope this video has helped you understand not only how fasting works, but why it's become such an important part of my life and how it could be for you. Now, I'd like to get you into a discussion, so if you want to leave some comments below, share your experiences. I want to thank you for listening. It's been quite a long one, this one, but I'll see you on the next one, and hopefully, eat well, lose some weight, enjoy yourself.